Welcome back to the Super Kext Bros channel. I'm your host Michel, and today we'll take a look at what I think will be the single best tool for any digital creative artist. It's the iPad.
NANI?!
I used to love crafting and creating when I was younger. At the age of around 16, I loved to draw comics and recreate Disney art, and I was just so into drawing. But you know, then all the grown-up responsibilities came with school and finding a job and having a job and working a job. Next thing you know, you're 30 and you're basically not doing anything creative. This has been my mode for, well, almost 14 years now, until I decided I not only wanted to be more creative, but I needed to be. And then, as luck would have it, my good brother bought a new gadget, as is so often the case, the iPad 3rd Gen from 2018, and I got one. And that's almost a year ago now. Like, to preface, it's been a good year with this thing. I love it, but I think it might actually be even greater in the years to come. Let's take a look, shall we? When talking about creative stuff on the iPad, most people will think of Procreate first and foremost. And for good reason. It's the most downloaded drawing app on the App Store, at least last time I checked. It has great brushes, a slick and minimal user interface that doesn't get in the way of your drawing, and intuitive finger gestures like 2-finger tap, 3-finger tap to redo, or pinch zoom. Procreate comes with a tool called Streamline, which makes drawing smooth lines more easy. If you're more into vector-based graphics, then an app like Vectornator is maybe more for you. Vectornator or Adobe Illustrator Draw are both available on the iPad for all of your node-based graphics work. They work okay for me, although admittedly I haven't really spent much time on learning how to do proper vector graphics, which is something I intend to invest more time in at some point. And it's nice that they offer this app for free on the App Store, so you can just easily get into it. Download the free app, watch some tutorials, start creating mediocre vector art like me, until it's less mediocre. It's that easy. Let's move on to animation apps, which I've gotten into over the last 2 or so months, starting with the animation that you see at the beginning of our videos. And I've made that animation a big part using Procreate. You see, Procreate also sports a relatively good, albeit basic, keyframe editor that lets you turn layers that you've created into frames and play them at your desired speed. Like, you can set it to 15 frames and it will play slower. Or you set it to 23 frames, which is smoother but definitely more work. For more complex animations, my tool of choice is called RoughAnimator, which I've used mostly for the intro animation. It looks horrible. It looks like a Windows 95 program, but it gets the job done, and it does so pretty well. So like I said, you can do many layers. You can do also variable frame rates, but more importantly, you can do variable frame lengths. So for example, if you have a still and you don't want to draw that 4 or 5 times, you can just make it that long. And that makes the animation look a little smoother. And well, if you of course have very basic drawing functions. It's not as good in my opinion as Procreate when it comes to drawing, but it's a great tool. I love it so much. It's not the nicest workflow, I have to admit, and I wish RoughAnimator would implement some of the drawing features that Procreate has, so that I can basically use RoughAnimator exclusively for animation. So going from animation apps to another cool set of apps that you can use on the iPad, we're gonna have a look at LumaFusion, which is a video editing app. Video editing on iPad actually works surprisingly well. I'd say it works better on the iPad than on many Macs out there. The iPad is a powerhouse, and using apps like LumaFusion for video editing makes you think you're using a professional desktop app for your video work. It supports many of the features full-fledged video editor supports, like transitions, color correction, exporting into different formats. Now, if you just want to do simple video edits, like cutting parts of your video out or making the audio a little louder, and you don't really want to spend money on an app like LumaFusion, iMovie is actually super usable at this point. Yeah, it's just really good. Now we go to the apps that are closest to my heart and that I think need the most work to make the iPad a truly standalone tool for creatives. Sound editing and audio recording. So let's start off with the classic, GarageBand. I wouldn't describe GarageBand's current iteration as Logic Pro Lite or Logic Lite, I guess. It looks and feels a lot like using Logic Pro, just less basically. You can browse sounds from the, well, sound browser, or use the built-in microphone to record stuff, or use an audio interface connected through like a USB-C dongle and connect your own instruments like a guitar or an external microphone. Unfortunately, you cannot use custom virtual instruments or effects like the Big Brother on OS X. GarageBand, although less so than some years ago, still feels like a toy to me, to be honest, with the big emphasis on touch controls. It sure is cool to use, but you're just so limited in what you can do with it. If you need a little more flexibility and a somewhat more full-fledged sound recording experience on your iPad, why not try Cubasis? It does offer universal app support. You can use it just like any other recording suite, all the same edits, effects, and whatever you need. It also looks and feels the same as a desktop DAW, so you'll feel right at home using it. Cubasis not only comes with a vast array of stock plugins, it even lets you buy and download a selection of well-known third-party plugins, for example from Waves. Although I love this development of having third-party apps, I still think it's way too limited. So like I mentioned at the start of this section, unlike the other sections of this video, I think audio recording functionality is somewhat limited. Let me explain. Over the past 15 years or so, I've invested both a lot of time and money into getting exactly the sound that I want from using Logic Pro X. I've bought plugins to fit my need, I've learned the ins and outs of all the functions in Logic. For me to switch completely to a new device like the iPad, it must really benefit me, and I don't really feel like we're quite there yet. Let's talk about something that I really don't like, and that's the file system. It just needs change. It's clunky. I can never find my stuff. It doesn't always recognize my external hard drives. Just make it work like OS X. Like, why not just copy something that works good? With the ARM-based Apple Silicon making its way into their lineup of laptops and other PC gear, chances are that the iPad will be able to run full-on OS X apps, or OS 11 at that point, I guess, like Logic Pro. And I think that would be the most amazing thing that could happen for me. Let me tell you, using GarageBand is just not working for me. It's lacking many features that full-on digital audio workstations like Logic Pro 10 have. Like I said before, I've invested a lot of time and money over the past about 15 years building up my whole setup within Logic, which makes it impossible for me to completely switch to using the iPad for all my music making needs. But with the switch to ARM-based processors and Macs, chances are that we'll be able to use full versions of things like Logic Pro on the iPad. Which begs the question, how would it be different from the full version? Will we get plugin support? If so, I can see myself completely switching to the iPad for all my creative needs. Imagine plugging in your guitar into an external sound card that's connected to your iPad, loading up your own plugins and having it sound just like on your proper workstation, or doing graphics work on a full version of Sketch on your iPad. I think we're in for some great features for the iPad once the switch to ARM-based silicon is completed. Alright guys, we've covered everything that I've been using over the past year or so using the iPad. Bottom line, I'm super happy what I've gotten out of this cool device when it comes to creativity, and I can't wait to see what's in store for this thing over the next few years. What do you think? Will we get some full-on desktop performance apps on the iPad? Will you be getting an iPad maybe? Or do you already have one? What is your experience with the iPad? Let us know down in the comments below. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and liking the video. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Ciao.